Money Mind on CNA938. I'm Stanley Leong with Chewy Lin. And in today's conversation, well, I refer to this next conversation we're just about to bring you as a main course edition. You know, how sometimes we like to go for small bites like tapas or maybe dim sum, but you know, sometimes you also prefer to have like a juicy slab of steak. Well, today it's like one of those steak days, 30 minutes of talk time with our guests because we believe there's a lot to be gleaned from the subject at hand.
And that subject is leadership. It's even more urgent to discuss leadership given that you and I operate in a D&D era, which stands for disruptive and digital-driven era. Now, with so much changing, there is a need to address the problem of ill-equipped leaders for and from the next generation, and that's probably why our guest decided to publish his thoughts and research in a book.
That's right. The book's titled Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders, Developing Future Leaders for a Disruptive Digital Era of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And it's written by seasoned executive coach and global leadership development practitioner, Professor Sata Bharwani. Now, Sata is Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Executive Education Global, or CEE Global. He's also a certified C-suite master executive coach with Executive Development Associates. And he bagged late in 2019, last year in November, the Executive of the Year for Human Resources Consulting Award, and that was at the Singapore Business Review's Management Excellence Award. If you'd like to get in on our conversation, please feel free to call through as we discuss leadership for the next generation at 669-11938 or text us, WhatsApp us if you like, at 963-11938. Sata, welcome to Money Mind. It's been a long time since we last spoke.
Yes,
How
indeed.
have you been?
Yeah,
Good
I'm
morning.
great, Stanley. Thank you so much to both you and William for having me here again. It's my pleasure, and really looking forward to this session with both of you.
Yeah, and congratulations on the award as well.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to the topic at hand, which will be our topic
Yes.
that we will be discussing today. Organizations needing to keep relevant in the new normal. What do you deem to be the greatest threats towards organizational irrelevance today?
Yeah. First of all, I think we know the extent or the parade of new technologies, scientific breakthroughs that has been relentless, over the last 20 years on many fronts. Technology represents new ways of doing things, helping us to be able to create new value propositions, and with organization and culture necessitate the need to reinvent themselves. Now, you ask the question, what makes it irrelevant? What will make organizations irrelevant is the inability to leverage on these new technologies effectively, such as the blockchain technology, we're talking about artificial intelligence, IoT, iOS, robotization, and so forth. How do we use and leverage them effectively to be able to bring about better value, create new solutions for our customers? You have to be very customer-centric. So what is happening, many organizations are being left out. Many organizations have failed to be able to master that more effectively because the leadership is all boils down to leadership and culture. And this is what in my research that I have published, that we find that a lot of organizations worldwide, across the US, Europe, in Asia, including Singapore, the primary factor is they're not able to understand the evolving technology, use those technology to help them to create new sustainable competitive advantage will position them well ahead than competitors. Right. And interestingly, this also applies to government, policy makers, societies, non-governmental organizations all have a role to play. So Singapore, for example, has been in the forefront, has been very successful in leveraging technology, looking at our nation digital blueprint, our digital transformation master plan. I think we, along with Korea, for example, and Japan, and China, and now recently at my trip to Japan, has demonstrated several trips to Japan. They and also to lately to Vietnam. What I found interesting in Vietnam, many of the organizations are so hungry, Stanley, William. They wanted to know what can we do now to ensure that we will survive the next 20, 30 years. So our organization will survive. So it's about leveraging on technology, creating new value proposition to allow you to create new sustainable competitive advantage to master or to prosper in the future for your customers.
Right. So if organizations are going to be irrelevant, it's a people problem.
Exactly.
Essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is the way in my book I talk about putting people before process and technology. So when we talk to a lot of, in my work as a C-suite executive coach and as a leadership development consultant trainer, in talking to a lot of CEO, C-suite business leader, one of the most important observation that I come across is that people tend to focus a lot on technology. See, technology is only an enabler. Technology is an enabler, but we must always remember the role of technology is to allow us, organizations and people within organizations to make the systems and processes simpler to deliver value for our customers, making our internal customers, employee, equip them with the right skills, prepare them on how to use the technology, upskill, reskill. Our government has a lot, skills future, a lot of programming, so upskilling, reskilling, and helping them. So technology should not be the primary focus in organization. Well, we need to understand technology, but we should focus on the people. So remember this PPT. So sounds like PowerPoint. Remember PPT?
I remember PPT.
Yeah.
What is PPT?
Yeah, the people over process and technology. So this is a very important mantra. If you follow that, you can never get wrong. Get the people right. And I'll give later examples of companies have done it right.
You talked about having the emphasis on people, process, and technology. So how do you develop future leaders among the people that you have? And I guess with a lot of baby boomers at the stage of retirement, how do you train up the next generation?
Well, this is part of what we call the succession planning. We need to first of all, we need to understand very clearly the fourth industrial revolution. In my book, we talk about transforming, developing the future leaders, or we call it next generation leaders for the fourth industrial revolution, which are already in. Let me get very quickly. The first industrial revolution started in the late 1800s, where water and steam generate what we call the production, mass production. Then we have the second industrial revolution, where we look at electricity to generate automation. Then we have the third industrial revolution back in the 60s, 70s, where computing, automation, becoming the cornerstone of any production, manufacturing strategy. And now, of course, we come to the current one, which is the fourth industrial revolution, building upon the third industrial revolution, where the focus is on the fusion, the confluence of technology, but robotic, iOS, which is Internet of System, Internet of IoT, Internet of Things. We talk about big data, blockchain technology, nanotechnology in medical, biomedical. And basically there's a confluence. If I were to rephrase Klaus Schwab from World Economic Forum, he says that WEF can be seen as a confluence, or a blur the line between the physical world, the digital world, and the biological world. And this is a reality, what's happening out there in the workplace. If you look at what's happening in Wuhan, the nanovirus, how are we responding? This is example of what we call the Vuca, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. It's chaotic. A lot of people are not ready. Organizations are not ready how to respond. Government are not ready. A lot of confusion. People are not ready for such. In Singapore, we are quite much based on what the government is saying. We are better prepared based on our past experience. And that's important now. The question is, how do you prepare these leaders? We need to define what are the next set of competencies that is going to drive success. Because of this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, it creates a new business environment, a new workplace where you need to have first clarity of vision. They must be very clearly, you must be able to articulate clearly what do you expect your people to do in times of such chaotic environment. There must be clarity of vision. Second, you must be able to clearly articulate or clearly understand. Once you articulate the vision, you need to understand what does it take to succeed, what does it take to address. What does it mean? It means that you need to be able to leverage on all the data, the information. You need to have what we call the ability to connect the dots, so to speak. There's
Make
so
sense of all the information that you have at hand.
Exactly, Stanley, because there's so much information that is happening that we are getting from the Chinese government, from the US, from the CDC, from the various health community health professional. So how do we make use and understand that? Third is about developing the ability to listen, understand from the employee what are their frustrations, what are their challenges. If you look at the example, I'm using the Wuhan for example in
Which
Wuhan.
is a good example.
Yeah, you look at the front health, the workers in the front line. Do we really understand what are the challenges? Look at SARS. Yes, we are fortunate. I happen to know because my dad was admitted during that period in 2003 SARS, but he passed on not because of SARS but something else. But my point is, I see the challenge of the frontline doctors, nurses, very challenging. And a lot of people lack of the empathy to understand what they're going through. So that's one, understand. So you have vision, you really need to understand connecting the dots, you need to really listen, empathy. And lastly, I think the most important for the future leaders and even meeting more, I believe there will be much more such challenges, VUCA-driven challenges, is what I've called agility. Now, agility can be many forms. It can be mental agility, learning agility, social agility. But here I'm referring to the mental agility, learning agility. How can you learn, unlearn, relearn? And a lot of things that you've learned, you need to be prepared to shift our mindset, our mental model, and ask ourselves, is this still relevant? Do we need to discard and learn new things which help us to solve these new challenges?
Sounds easier said than done, though, because if it's something that we have grown familiar with, it's a process and a system that we don't quite think through. We just go autopilot in some sense, and then now you're causing us to think about the need to unlearn, relearn something new. And those of us who are slightly older in years, that might be totally overwhelming for us.
No, actually, it's not really. We have been doing that in school. I think I must admit, in Singapore, and I travel across the world. One of the, I think, over our former DPM Tharman, when he was the Minister of Education, he instituted what we call the learning schools, thinking schools, learning nation, or the other learning school. Either way, he emphasized the use of critical thinking at schools, institutions, organizations, what we call, in my book, we call it cognitive readiness. The ability to leverage on critical thinking together with your emotional and social intelligence, with empathy especially. How do you then bring about the shift in mindset to manage those challenges? A very good example I give a case study is Microsoft. The CEO Satya Nadella. Satya Nadella is one of the all-time, greatest CEO. In my view, he has been transformational in terms of developing Microsoft today over the last 5 years, since he took on after Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. And he emphasized the importance of learning agility, empathy, to drive Microsoft to thrive in the VUCA-driven, highly disruptive era of the fourth industrial revolution. So it can be done. It can be done, and it has been done, and I believe we can do it.
We can do it. Stay tuned. We got more tips on how you can do it. Professor Satya Bhawani is speaking with us here on Money Mind. He is Chief Executive Officer at CEE Global. CEE stands for Center for Executive Education. If you've got a question for our guest today, we'd love to hear you out, and you can text us or WhatsApp us a message or question at 963-11938. Or call through as you tune into our conversation today, discussing the transformation that needs to happen for next generation leaders at your organization. Our number is 669-11938. Today we are speaking with Professor Satya Bhawani. He is Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Executive Education Global. Satya is also a certified C-suite master executive coach with Executive Development Associates. Now, his expertise spans 30 years in international business management, including 20 years in executive coaching, group facilitation, leadership development and training. And he's also, worked with global management consulting firms like Mercer HR Consulting, Hay Group, and DBM. Today we are focused on the book that he's recently got out onto the markets. It's also available at the National Library, and it's titled Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders. And in just a moment, we're going to be talking about the difference between leadership and management, or the difference between leaders and managers.
Well, this question has just come in from our listener, Shamir Barucha. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And the question for you, Professor, is the concept of Vuca is not entirely new in the corporate world, yet it is still viewed as a paradigm shift in most organizations today. So what is the one single factor within Vuca that organizations in Singapore or Asia need to focus on to ensure we remain relevant in the foreseeable future? Thanks very much to Shamir for posing that question.
Well, I think it's true. I think a lot of people have asked me, over the last 10, 20 years, we have seen Vuca. The world is volatile, uncertain, complex. So it's not really new. So what has made it different this time is the digital disruption. It's a confluence, as I mentioned, because of what you call the digital disruption, the technology, the robotics, IoT, iOS, blockchain technology, robotization at the workplace. What it means is that this allow us to be able to deliver our product and services faster, better, or create new value proposition. But at the same time, it creates challenges for leaders and organizations because they're not able to move fast as the change. And this is where organizations need to continuously reassess their leadership skills, their competency, and skills that's required to reinvent themselves in the new marketplace. And this is where many companies are missing, are not able to do it quickly and faster. But this is the problem about agility, I mentioned earlier about agility, adaptability, with cognitive readiness, emotional, social intelligence, with empathy, focusing on the customers as epicenter, whatever you do. There's a need to shift your mental model, the way you think the problem, and also your strategy, the customer-centric strategy. This is very important because we need to ensure that whatever we do, we need to stop, look, and learn and listen to our customers. We need to understand their current and future needs. You need to anticipate their needs to be able to remain relevant. So the VUCA is real. The nature of the disruptive, digital-driven fourth industrial revolution create this VUCA business environment. It's an outcome, and it's going to remain so. And if you look at the first two, volatility and uncertainty, is an outcome of, or rather the complexity and ambiguity, the pace of the volatility and uncertainty leads to the higher degree of complexity and ambiguity. So the more ambiguous it is because of the volatility. So therefore, we need to ask ourselves, are we doing enough? What are we doing now that would not allow us to position ourselves for the future? So the key word is reinventing ourselves today as a leader.
Reinventing ourselves today for the future. Therein lies that very difficult ability to try to project what the future will be. We know where we're headed, but as to what the future will be, how do we bridge that divide? Because we're not there yet, but yet we're trying to anticipate that forward.
See, Stanley, you're absolutely right. This is where what makes a great leader and a good manager. A good manager, and we get things done on day to day, is an action of planning, organizing, staffing, including leading and controlling. If you look at the words of Henry Fayol in 1949, the classical thought of management is all about how do we maximize output of organization through administrative implementation of resources. That's what manager does. Whereas a leader is able to envision the future. A leader is able to impact and influence and have a follower who's able to, you can impact and influence them, motivate them, inspire them, help them, coach them, guide them, mold them to solve the problem, the obstacles of the vision. So leaders are far in between, very few. There are many managers. But remember, to be a great manager, you need to be a good leader, just be a great leader. But not all managers are leaders. But all leaders that you see today have those skills that I explained about inspiring, motivate. Actually, it reminds me of a very one of my favorite quote from President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a 5-star general who became the president in the World War II. He says this is leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want to be done because he, the employee or the person, wants to do it. Not because he has to do it, which a manager usually uses because of position of authority. A leader inspire people to do it because they want to do it, not because they have to do it. Because they feel inspired. They want to do it for you, and they will do it with blood, sweat, and tears, and even die for you in the military sense. Right. That's what makes a great leader. We have too many managers out there. There are very few leaders.
I mean, Will and I have had different careers throughout our professional lives as well. Have you encountered that sort of a leader whom you want to do things not because you are meant to do them?
No.
Okay, there you go. I think then you
maybe Will and I will ask you this question. If you walk into a room, do you find anyone, a leader, or to not their direct leader, anyone, when you walk into a room, do you feel that the whole world is centered around you, the way he communicates to you, the way he looks at you, the way he engages you? The whole world is around you. Now, that is called socialized power. Leader need to have that create the aura that they demonstrate social intelligence.
It sounds so rare.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, you walk into a room and you have a leader or manager or someone who talk everything about themselves, and they're all about me, I get things done. They use coercive power as opposed to socialized power, and it's all about me getting done because my position of authority, because I have the power. I'm the CEO, I'm the MD, I'm the minister. You get things done. No question asked, the dictatorial style of leadership. It doesn't work anymore. So you need to demonstrate that through leadership, authenticity, humility, with emotional and social intelligence. That's what leadership is. Because you asked a question earlier about what between managers and leaders. So that is the empathy.
Right, the keyword that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and that's where a great leader like Satya Nadella from Microsoft, in his book called Hit Refresh, he explained why empathy is so important. In my book, I have a chapter talking about that. The importance of empathy as a leadership quality in the 4th Industrial Revolution, or in what we call the digital era, is very important.
Well, the fact that we haven't encountered many leaders of the sort that you've described, with vision, empathy, who are inspirational, does it mean that these qualities are innate and cannot be trained?
Well, this is what a lot of people think, but actually in my work over the last 30 years, both as an executive coach, as a leadership development consultant, the answer, you can be trained. But the question, this is all innate, this is hidden. So you need to find time to develop. But the reality is, there are people who do not, or will not, or unable to do so because for whatever reason we call it uncoachable. They are a small group of people. For whatever you try very hard, giving them feedback, coaching them, helping them, giving mentor, give them support. So the point is you can. So you need to be able to create a very high level of self-awareness, which is part of emotional intelligence, to help them to realize that all of us have blind spots. All of us have derailers. All of us, we are not perfect. The question is, do you have anyone to provide the support? Coaches, mentor, family, friends, stakeholders who are able to care for you, who wants to help you. And it's for us to ask for help. And the best thing, William and Stanley, if you have a child between the age of 8 to 14, ask them, what is it about me? How can I be better? And they will tell you because they got no harm. Because you still love you. They will tell you as it is right in your face. You still will love them. Because they'll give you authentic feedback. Ask them. But don't ask those in 18, 21, probably. So they probably have different agenda. But those younger age, 6, 8, 12, 14, they will be the best source of feedback.
Well, once again, we invite you to text in or WhatsApp your questions in at 963-11938 as we have several more minutes with our guest today, Professor Sata Bawani, who is the author of Transforming the Next Generation of Leaders. Now, you write in your book, Sata, about the need to identify high potential next-gen leaders within an organization whom we can develop. Now, what are some of these attributes of these high potentials that have leadership qualities?
Yeah, I think, thanks, Stanley. I think most important, we need to understand in the context of organizational development, what do you mean by potential? Yeah, potential in my book, I talk about whether someone will have the ability or the propensity to succeed in a bigger role in the future, leadership role in the future, ability to handle what do you call a greater responsibility in terms of scale and scope. You can be a marketing manager now, but can you handle more complex other function at your level, current level? Or we talk about complexity, more breadth in terms of sustainability. Can you stretch the person to do other things beyond the current level? So when we talk about high potential, one of the things, how do you identify? How do you look for some traits and look out for these few traits? One is what we call cognitive readiness. So these are the capacity to deal with complex business challenges of the VUCA, of the digital world. What do you mean by that? They must be able to think critically. They must be able to have strategic thinking skills, complex problem solving, decision making. These are all has been identified as well. Besides my research by EDA and CE, also WEF, World Economic Forum, has identified the top 3 to top 5 skills as critical thinking, complex problem solving. The other thing is the deep sense making and ability to connect the dots. So if you look at someone, whether he has a potential, he will look at the situation, you look at the information that you give him, he's able to derive insights. And what does it mean? Discover new information. How can I use it to solve the problem? Third is ability to have high level of social and emotional intelligence, how to persuade people with emotion, empathy, communicate a persuasive vision, connecting individual with relationship management. Skills, very important. And lastly, is drive and motivation, relentless pursuit, a strong sense of what we call adversity quotient. Despite all the problems, all the challenges you're facing, let's pursue that goal. Let's move towards the goal. Learn, unlearn, relearn. If that doesn't work, what can we do differently? The learning agility, the mental agility with cognitive readiness, all these are required for the next generation leaders to thrive in the highly disruptive and digital-driven era of the 4th Industrial Revolution today.
And how can executive coaching help develop those skills that you mentioned, the clarity of vision, the mental agility, and the ability to connect the dots?
Yeah, I think very good, William. First of all, let's talk about coaching. Coaching started around 1950s. It started in the sports. In the management arena, we talk about coaching. It started out with managers have the responsibility to improve the subordinate performance through sort of a master-apprentice model. This all started back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then executive coaching came more into prominence in the late 80s, 90s. I learned a lot from one of my role models, Marshall Goldsmith, who endorsed the book, by the way. You see he endorsed the book. Marshall is the foremost authority, number one foremost authority in executive coaching. And he told me that it's very important. Coaching, he's told me that, I learned from him, and from that was 1995. He said coaching is about ability to, is about confidential, one-on-one, highly personalized form of partnership between the leader and the employee, and to create in a safe environment. So the leader can openly discuss the issues, the challenges without being judged. And usually the executive coach is an outside professional who's a trained professional who's able to support the leader in a very safe environment. And what's the benefit for the coach, for the individual leader? The benefit that this is an independent sounding board and is a strategic partner, as I say, in a safe environment. He can effectively develop his emotional, social, leadership ability, and to be able to contribute not only to himself, his team, and to the organization in the long term. For the organization, why do organizations want to invest in this? I think one is to help to build a talent pipeline, leadership bench strength, as part of succession planning, and that's important. Even our government, even a lot of non-government organizations, the social institutions have problems to find leaders to replace because they do not put in place such development strategies. And lastly, organization benefit from coaching one-on-one, but highly personalized, by improving the potential leaders' ability to take on new role in the future, which will allow the sustainability is part of business continuity planning.
Yep, just touching a little bit there of executive coaching, but really we have been spending the last hour or so talking about the transformation of next gen leaders that needs to happen in order for your organization to not just survive but thrive in the fourth industrial revolution era. We have been speaking with Professor Sata Bhavani, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Executive Education Global, and their website www.cee-global.com to find out more about his book, which is available at both the National Library as well as on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Do visit www.nextgen-leaders.sg.